If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. What part of Samantha's journey resonated most with you? Your thoughts mean everything to us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss tomorrow's powerful story. It's one you won't want to miss. Each day brings a new tale of courage, heartbreak, and hope. We're so glad you're on this journey with us. Until then, stay inspired and stay kind. A nurse saved a life, lost her job, then got a letter that changed everything. It was just after 10 p.m. when Samantha Hayes, a 34-year-old emergency room nurse in Dallas, Texas, was preparing to clock out after a grueling 12-hour shift. The night had been long, filled with the usual chaos, minor injuries, a few car accident victims, and endless charting, but nothing she hadn't handled 100 times before. She was exhausted, her feet aching in her sneakers, her scrubs wrinkled from the long day. As she was grabbing her bag and heading toward the staff exit, the ER doors burst open with a violent clatter. The sound was followed by shouting, hurried footsteps, and the unmistakable rush of a trauma situation. Young boy, no older than 10, was being wheeled in by 2 paramedics. His shirt was soaked in blood. His skin was pale and clammy. Samantha dropped everything. The adrenaline kicked in before she even had time to think. "Gunshot wound to the chest," one of the medics yelled. "No pulse. He flatlined en route." The child's small frame was barely moving. He had been hit by a stray bullet during a drive-by shooting just blocks from his home. 1 second he was playing outside on his scooter, the next, fighting for his life. Samantha rushed to his side, her training and instinct overriding the panic that gripped everyone else in the room. She checked for signs of life. No pulse, no breath, no time. The trauma surgeon on call had been delayed. No one else was qualified or authorized to perform what needed to be done. She called for permission from hospital leadership, her voice sharp and focused. The reply, "Hold on, we're checking with the board." But Samantha could feel the boy's body growing colder by the second. She looked at the other nurses, her heart pounding. This boy didn't have the time to wait. Without official clearance, she made the decision. She grabbed sterile gloves, opened an emergency kit, and prepped the boy's chest. "You're going to lose your license," one nurse whispered, stunned. Samantha didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the child. Every second mattered. With practiced hands, she intubated him, made a precise incision, and began the emergency thoracotomy. Her hands moved with steady confidence, though her heart thundered inside her chest. She had never done this alone, but she had trained for it, countless hours, countless simulations. Now it was real. The room was silent except for the beep of the monitor and the hum of the ventilator. Then, miraculously, the faint rhythm of a heartbeat. First weak, then stronger. The boy's vitals began to stabilize. She had done it. Samantha had brought him back. But as she wiped the sweat from her brow and watched the trauma team finally arrive, she knew in her gut. Her life had just changed. She had crossed a line no one wanted to cross. She had saved a life. But at what cost? The next morning, Samantha Hayes sat in a cold, windowless conference room on the 5th floor of the hospital, just 12 hours after she had saved a young boy's life. Her scrubs were fresh, but her eyes carried the weight of the night before. She hadn't slept. The image of the child's blood-stained chest, the lifeless look in his eyes before she cut through the skin, was still seared into her memory. She kept telling herself it had been worth it, that she'd done the right thing. But now, as a group of sharply dressed administrators filed into the room, her heart dropped. No one smiled. No one thanked her. The air was tense, clinical, like a courtroom instead of a hospital. The head of the board, a man she'd only spoken to twice in her 12 years working there, cleared his throat and began without ceremony. "Samantha," he said, his voice as flat as the beige walls surrounding them. "We need to talk about what happened in the ER last night." She nodded, hands folded in her lap, trying to stay composed. "I saved his life," she said quietly, but firmly. There was no pulse, no surgeon, no time. "That's not in question," he replied. "But you violated multiple protocols. You performed a thoracotomy without authorization. That's outside your scope of practice." Samantha's jaw tightened. "And if I hadn't, that child would be dead right now." Silence. The room felt colder. One of the HR reps glanced at the papers in front of her. "We understand the situation was extreme, but it doesn't change the fact that hospital policy was ignored. You should have waited." "Waited? For what? Permission to let a 10-year-old die?" Samantha didn't say it out loud. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. The head of the board sighed. "We appreciate your service here, but as of today, your employment is terminated. You'll be escorted out after this meeting. Your license is not our jurisdiction, but a formal report will be submitted." She felt like the ground had dropped beneath her. Fired. Just like that. No second chances. No gray areas. She had acted to save a life, and now everything she'd worked for was being taken from her. No goodbye party, no handshake, no gratitude. Just a folder slid across the table, and a security guard waiting at the door. Samantha stood up slowly, her heart racing but her face calm. She looked each board member in the eye. "If doing what's right cost me my job," she said, "then I don't want to work for a place like this anyway." With that, she walked out, head high, back straight, leaving behind a title, a paycheck, and a hospital that had chosen policy over humanity. As she stepped into the hallway, sunlight poured in from the lobby windows. The world outside still moved on. She had no idea what would come next. But something told her this story was far from over. The sun had barely risen when Samantha stepped through the front door of her small Dallas apartment. Her hands trembled slightly as she set her keys on the counter and kicked off her shoes. The hospital badge that had once hung proudly from her chest now sat buried in the bottom of her bag, useless, like a memory she wasn't ready to face. The silence inside was deafening. No phone calls, no emails, no one knocking on her door to say, "You did the right thing." Just her thoughts, swirling louder than ever. She sat by the window, watching the morning traffic crawl by. Her heart was heavy. She'd saved a child's life, yet she was branded a rule breaker, cast out without so much as a thank you. Her career, 12 years of night shifts, split-second decisions, and silent victories, had been wiped away in one meeting. And for what? Because she refused to let a child die? She picked up her phone, thumb hovering over a message from her best friend, Allison. "Call me. I saw the news." Samantha hadn't turned on the TV. She didn't have the energy, but her phone buzzed again. This time, a knock at the door followed. Startled, she stood, unsure of who could be visiting at this hour. Peeking through the peephole, she saw a tall man in a dark suit, standing straight like he belonged somewhere far more important than her apartment hallway. His car, a sleek black government vehicle, idled at the curb. She opened the door slowly. "Samantha Hayes?" the man asked, his voice firm but respectful. "Yes," she replied cautiously. He handed her a thick white envelope embossed with a gold seal. "You've been requested for a private audience," he said simply. "By the President of the United States." For a moment the words didn't register. Samantha stared at the envelope in disbelief, her pulse quickening. "Is this some kind of joke?" "I assure you it's not," the man said, then nodded politely and turned to leave. Within seconds he was gone, like a ghost from a dream too bizarre to be real. She closed the door and clutched the envelope, heart pounding. With Careful fingers, she broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. As her eyes scanned the page, she gasped. The child she had saved, the boy whose tiny heart she'd restarted, was the son of an international ambassador visiting the U.S. on diplomatic assignment. Word of her actions had reached the highest levels of government. The letter, signed in elegant script by President Alexander Monroe, personally invited her to the White House for a private meeting. Her hands shook as she sat down. Her mind raced with questions. Was she in trouble again? Or was this recognition? Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear this time, but from shock. Just yesterday, she had been fired for breaking protocol. Now, the most powerful man in the country wanted to see her face to face. And deep down, Samantha knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. 2 days later, Samantha Hayes found herself sitting in the back of a government-issued black SUV, her hands nervously folded in her lap. The streets of Washington, D.C. passed by in a blur, but she could hardly focus. Her thoughts were tangled with questions. How had she gone from being fired to being summoned by the president? Was this really happening? She glanced down at the navy blue suit she had borrowed from Allison. Her friend insisted she dress for the occasion, and tried to steady her breathing. As the vehicle turned a final corner, the grand gates of the White House came into view. They towered before her, white iron and symbolism gleaming in the afternoon sun. Samantha's heart thudded in her chest as they opened. The car rolled in slowly, past manicured gardens and crisp-suited Secret Service agents. When it came to a stop, a uniformed staff member opened her door with a quiet nod. "Miss Hayes, welcome. This way, please." Inside, the White House was everything she had imagined. Ornate, historical, intimidating. Chandeliers sparkled above. Her head and polished floors reflected the light like water. She was guided down a long hallway, past portraits of presidents and foreign dignitaries, until finally, the aide stopped at a large wooden door. "The president will see you now," he said gently, before stepping aside. Samantha took a breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed the door open. The room was stunning. Sunlight poured in through tall windows, and behind a mahogany desk stood President Alexander Monroe. He was tall, with silver-streaked hair, a calm presence, and eyes that seemed to study everything and everyone. "Miss Hayes," he said, stepping forward with a warm smile. "It's an honor to meet you." Samantha blinked, unsure of what to say. "Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect this. I didn't think anyone really noticed." "Oh, we noticed," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "The boy you saved, his name is Elias. His father is Ambassador Navarro, one of our most trusted allies. He told me what happened. Told me that you didn't just save his son. You changed all of our lives." She sat quietly, her throat tight with emotion. President Monroe continued, "You risked your career, your future, to do what was right. That takes a rare kind of courage. And while the hospital may not have recognized it, I do. This country does." Then, he stood and walked to a nearby cabinet, unlocking a small case. Inside was a polished gold pin, a symbol of service and trust. "I'd like to offer you a position on my personal medical team. As White House medical officer, you'll care for me, my family, and select personnel. It's a position of honor and responsibility." Before Samantha could speak, he added, "There's something else." He handed her a sealed letter. She opened it, and her eyes widened. It was a personal gift from the Navarro family. $50 million transferred to her name. A gesture of profound gratitude. Samantha felt the world tilt. Just days ago, she had lost everything. Now, she held in her hands a future she'd never dared to imagine. 1 year later, Samantha Hayes stood at the wide windows of the White House medical wing, watching the morning sun rise over the National Mall. The golden light spilled across the city, but her mind wasn't on the view. It was on how far she'd come. Just 12 months ago, she'd been sitting alone in a cold hospital conference room, being fired for saving a child's life. Now, she was the chief medical officer to the President of the United States. But even with the prestige, the private office, and the crisp white coat that bore the presidential seal, Samantha never let it change who she was. She still rose early, checked her rounds with quiet diligence, and greeted every staff member by name. Her title had changed, her life had changed, but her heart hadn't. The $50 million gift from Ambassador Navarro had been overwhelming at first. She had spent weeks wrestling with what to do with it. Luxury never interested her. Instead, she used a large portion to open a nonprofit, the Hayes Foundation for Emergency Response Training, providing scholarships and critical care equipment to underfunded hospitals across the U.S., starting with the one in Dallas that let her go. Her work had caught national attention. News outlets had called her the nurse who broke the rules to save a life, and her face had appeared on magazine covers she never read. But the recognition never mattered. What mattered was the people, the lives she could still touch, the students she could mentor, and the patients who needed her. That afternoon, Samantha walked into a packed auditorium at the top nursing school in the country. Hundreds of students turned in their seats as she stepped onto the stage. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just her usual calm presence and a tailored navy suit. "I'm not here to talk about politics," she began, her voice steady. "I'm here to talk about choices. A year ago, I had to choose between following protocol or saving a boy's life." She paused, letting her words hang in the air. "I lost my job that day, but I never lost my purpose. And that's what I want to leave you with today. Your purpose is bigger than any rule book. Your instinct, your compassion, your willingness to do what's right when it's hard. That's what makes you a nurse." The students rose to their feet, applauding not just the story, but the spirit behind it. And later, as Samantha shook hands, took photos, and answered questions, she realized something deeper. This was her true reward, not the job, not the money, but the legacy. That evening, as she returned to the West Wing, Samantha paused in the hallway, looking at her reflection in the polished glass. She no longer saw the scared nurse who broke the rules. She saw a woman who stood for something bigger. She smiled faintly. She had saved one life. And somehow, in doing so, had changed her own forever. Samantha's story is more than just a tale of courage. It's a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing comes with a cost, but also with a greater purpose. What would you have done in her shoes? Have you ever faced a moment where following your heart meant risking everything? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know how this story made you feel. Did Samantha inspire you? Did the ending surprise you? And more importantly, where in the world are you watching from today? We love seeing this global community come together through stories like this. If her journey moved you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Share your reflections. Share your city. Share your voice. Your comment could inspire someone else who's also standing at a crossroads in life. And don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow we're bringing you another powerful story that might just change how you see the world. Until then, stay brave, stay kind, and thank you for being part of this incredible journey.